views, opinions, and positions expressed on this radio program are those of the speakers, authors, or other contributors. This broadcast is intended for entertainment purposes only.
Consciousness is an amorphous and expanding entity.
Realize that you are in a cultural hypnosis.
We have been systematically put into a state of unconsciousness so that we cannot see.
I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like
What
that.
we are part of and what we are experiencing, and that is change.
And now, here is your host for Quantum Mindfulness Radio, Joe Ayala Ayapana.
Okay, we're going to be going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to another inspiring episode of Quantum Mindfulness Radio 2.0. This is episode number 2. And I got to apologize to all my listeners, all my followers on this platform. It's been a little bit of a while, I got to say, since episode number 1. It's been a few weeks. And I've been going through a little things, especially so in the past few weeks. But it's not the fact that I don't want to produce any content. It's just the fact that I've just been so boggled down with a lot of pre-planning, a lot of rebranding, a lot of soul searching, and especially so with a lot of writing. So it's kind of like back and forth. Like I'll be on a string of creative, whatever you want to call it, for weeks at a time, blogging, okay, which I have been doing from the last few weeks. And then sometimes I'll just, it'll be a desert with the whole writing thing. And then I'll start broadcasting tremendously for like weeks at a time. And so I took many weeks off to write. And so I do have a desire, an actual plan to write a book. And it'll essentially be a compilation, a collection of all of my writings that I've blogged about within our blog at blog.with.realrevolutionradio.com. And so now Spirit is telling me, God is telling me, my heart is telling me to start broadcasting again. And so I do have an intention here. I do have a plan to heading out to Arizona in September. Okay. And September 11th, 10 years ago, actually 20 years ago, was when we had the 9/11, September 11th happenings, which occurred during that time period. And so, in essence, I would like to start recording every day. And this would essentially be like a vlog per se, anything that just crosses my mind. If anybody wants to be a guest on this platform, by all means, let's talk about certain pertinent topics, which has to do with everything that's happening right now as we speak, as far as the sign of the times, trending events, and just COVID-19 for the most part. It's still in our human psyche, and it affects everybody on either side of the platform or spectrum on a day-to-day basis. And so I am here for you. Okay. I in particular, this is very therapeutic for me for the most part, because in order to organize the things that are happening throughout the world, I have to express myself and interpret it and analyze and review what's actually going on from my own end of things, because it is a platform, a means of exuding out creativity. And with that being said, it helps me. And as it helps me, I'm praying that it also helps you too as well. And since my shift of essentially going from a place of New Age to now a platform of returning back to Christ, I'm essentially going back into the very beginnings of how I had started out spiritually. And so, with that being said, here we are in fashion to essentially bringing back the essence of why I had started this journey of spirit from the very get-go. And I gotta say, I essentially walked away from the church, more in particular, the Catholic religion. I say about 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago. I don't know the particular date. I don't know the specifics, but I just decided to walk away. And the very entity, the very movement which had embraced me was the New Age. And when we're talking about the New Age, we're talking about essentially everything. When we talk about the esoteric, quantum theory, tarot, channeling, you name it, shamanism, sky's the limit. And so it embraced me. But as I started to go deeper into it, especially with everything that happened in 2020 with QAnon, with the elections, with such a great divide within our country and the United States, I decided towards the tail end of 2020 to ask directly to God, what is happening? Please provide me with clarity. Please provide me with truth. And when a little parcel of that truth was given to me, it blew my mind away. It absolutely torn the very essence of my perception, my perspective as to my own particular worldview of the world. And it essentially destroyed it, to tell you the truth, because I absolutely thought it was one particular way, but it wasn't. And then just this Passover and the beginning portions of April, I also did the same thing. Lord, God of the Most High, please provide me with more clarity and truth. And when all of that was given to me upon my request, I was provided with that truth. And that truth in itself didn't force me. All of this is free will. All of this is by choice. It allowed me to have more discernment as to the righteousness of things, as to what is wrong, what is evil, what is good, what is light, what is darkness. It was duality for the most part. And from what I had been shown, what was provided in knowledge to me, knowledge and strength, I made that executive decision to walk away from the New Age. And so here we are today, episode number 2, Quantum Mindfulness Radio 2.0, the rebrand, in which this rebranding in itself, which Quantum Mindfulness Radio was originally a New Age platform, but now it is a Christian broadcasting podcast in itself. And I would like to go a few steps beyond of just being a Christian. I would like to consider myself as being a disciple of God for the most part, going beyond Christianity, beyond the church, and with more of a closer relationship to God, the Most High. And so for today's episode, the topic of discussion is the movie which was released back in March 21st, many, many weeks ago, about over a month ago, March 21st. And the name of the movie is Godzilla versus Kong, out of all things. And so, Joel, what is going on here? Okay, so what does this topic have to do with anything, let alone Christianity, spirituality, being a disciple of God, the worldview of things? Okay, so this is a movie. This is essentially from a franchise where it talks about Godzilla versus King Kong, which is essentially a film production that was originally created back in the earliest 1900s, 1920, 30, 40. I don't know the specifics. All I know is that I was watching reruns of Godzilla and King Kong back when I was a kid, back in the 80s. Okay. But with my intuitive nature of things, I have come across this movie, Godzilla versus King Kong, for which I have always been a fan of. Okay. Ever since as a child. Just fascinated by anything that was megalithic, giants, titans, and anything that had to do with it. It just fascinated my mind and my consciousness. And so Godzilla versus Kong made into movie form and under the guise of one of the most prominent, and I'm a huge fan of legendary films. And this film in particular was actually one that was produced and directed by Adam Wingard. I'm not really familiar with him, but he actually produced this particular movie under the guise of legendary films. I have always been a fan of legendary films. Ever since Planet of the Apes, the monster series with Godzilla, with Kong, per se, and now we're bringing we're bridging the gap between these two monster flicks right here. These two franchises with King Kong and Godzilla, and they're facing off. What does this have to do with anything? Well, to tell you the truth, okay, it depicts essentially, it represents, it symbolizes essentially the sign of the times. Okay, transhumanism at its best, in which the worldview of transhumanism as a backdrop to everything that is happening now as we speak. It's the worldview of the dragon. The dragon, like serpent, like, reptilian. Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who do not know, when we're talking about the serpent, when we're talking about the snake, when we're talking about the dragon per se, we're essentially talking about going back to the beginning, the origins, back to the Garden of Eden, where the serpent had confronted Adam and Eve, the forefront of the origination of humanity from the very beginning, and in the garden. And so what had been proposed to them from the very beginning is essentially what is proposed to us every day, today, is this unrelenting, insatiable urge for knowledge, for hidden wisdom, for the inner workings of a hidden agenda that we just cannot get enough of. There's this continual urge for more information in a time of information amidst a time of misinformation. And it can be a blessing or it can be a curse at the very same time. And so without going into too much detail with, and I would like to talk about that though, in future episodes, maybe even the next episode where I talk about Eden, the garden, the forbidden sciences, the forbidden fruit from the tree of life of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, I do want to talk about it. There's so much to talk about that. And it's, again, pertinent to everything that is happening now as we speak. So we're going to talk about that in a future episode. But as far as this movie pertains to anything, okay, I just want to place focus upon Godzilla versus Kong, the main storyline, the plot, and how it relates to these very times, the sign of the times, essentially the sign of the times before the sounding of the final trumpets. For those who do not know, could it be possible that we are in a place of tribulation, biblical scripture, biblically speaking, tribulation during these times? And that's a question for you to ponder upon after you watch this show, okay? Now, back in the tail end of 2020, when the first phase of discovery or revelation was provided to me, when it was provided to me, it was essentially the way that I can interpret and review and analyze the information that was provided to me in spirit through God, the Most High, was that the things that we saw before us is essentially components, parcels, interweaving to a broader context, in which they were essentially proponents, two-headed in nature, of a two-headed beast. And when I started to see the more complexity, the more complex it became, as far as the very heads to the very leaderships of prominent portions of our society, of our global community, I started to see a three-headed beast instead. And then the deeper it got, it was a multi-headed beast. And then it got deeper, and I'm like, okay, well, what kind of place are we living in? What reality is this? It's 2 Corinthians 4:4 all day. Without going into too much detail, because I don't have my Bible right in front of me, that particular scripture in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 4:4, essentially states that this realm, this reality, is essentially not the God of the Most High, but the lowercase God. Lowercase God. The God of this realm is Satan. And I started to find out that the very beast in itself, which controls the very nature of this realm, is multi-headed. It's a multi-headed hydra for the most part. And it reminded me instantaneously, once I started to dig deeper into the very nature of what this is all about, that this multi-headed hydra sounds like the beast of the book of Revelations, right? And so when you further break down the essence of this movie, Godzilla versus Kong, I started to realize that not only does it combine the essence of modern day with that of transhumanism, but also to that of ancient mythology and ancient archaeology, and ties in well to that of the mythology in the Hindu realms of the Hollow Earth. And there are many proponents of the Hollow Earth. There are other proponents of flat Earth, and there are just proponents of just the in-betweens. But I'm in particular a proponent of the Hollow Earth. And with that being said, if you cannot include within the equation the Hollow Earth with leaving out the prominence of Lemuria. And when we're talking about Lemuria, we're talking about the very essence of what many people who have investigated this particular realm or the subject matter as the Garden of Eden. Many relate Lemuria with the Garden of Eden as well to that of the Hollow Earth. Okay, and again, I'm not going to go into too much detail into that, but I just wanted to bring that out for you because this movie essentially ties in together transhumanism with the Hollow Earth. And when we talk about biblical topics in nature, we cannot leave out the subject matter of titans of old, giants. There were giants in those days, which is symbolic in representation to the giants that we see on film, in this movie in particular, with Godzilla and King Kong. They're essentially titans, they're giants, okay? So there were giants in those days and thereafter. And so after the flood, it seems to be that these giants were disembodied demons who transitioned often at times to encompass or demonize or to take advantage of human bodies, to take possession of them through spirit and take over their lives, and through demon possession. And that very much so ties in well to what happens when, towards the end of this movie, when we're dealing with AI. Okay, now, those who have not seen this movie, okay, I'm gonna drop many things that are in the movie, which may give the movie totally away. And so, for those who did see it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, because these monsters, Godzilla and King Kong, since they are the representation of the titans of old, the giants per se, of this Earth realm, Matrix Earth, they do face a common foe. Okay. Now, let's just kind of step back a little bit, because there was a movie called King of the Monsters with Godzilla, okay, where Godzilla was facing off towards many of the other Titan monsters throughout the world, okay. And one of the last face-offs that Godzilla had to face was Ghidorah, who was a a three-headed beast. Now, earlier I talked about the two-headed beast, three-headed beast, multi-headed hydra, and so forth. So Ghidorah was one of those beasts, those titans of old. And this beast was three-headed in nature. It was essentially a three-headed dragon for the most part. And and that is such an epiphany for me too, because that sets up the stage for what is about to happen in this movie towards the tail end of Godzilla versus Kong. Because at the end of the movie of King of the Monsters with Godzilla, which was the movie that came out a few years back prior to Godzilla versus Kong, and Godzilla had actually killed Ghidorah, right? But this company named Apex was able to salvage one of the heads, okay, and was able to have the brains of one of these heads of the dragons, of this Ghidorah, this three-headed beast, and was able to provide enough nourishment to keep this brain alive. And so what had happened was that none of the humans within this movie knew exactly what was happening. Okay. And so it seems to be that this company called Apex was able to salvage this brain and to place its consciousness within an AI machine. Okay. But before I get into too much detail with it, I just want to go into detail to some of the main characters for this movie, in which we had Millie Bobby Brown, who plays Madison Russell, and in which she played in Netflix's hit series Stranger Things many years back, right? And so in Stranger Things, she was much younger and she was bald, and I thought she was a boy for the most part. But now she is in this movie playing a female role, in which her parents, I believe, are Mark and Emma from the Godzilla series, the monster series movies from a few years back. So Emma is essentially the daughter of Mark and Emma. And she has a big part of this movie because she is a huge proponent for Godzilla for the most part. And she essentially partners up and joins teams with another individual. I forgot what his name was, but there was another individual too as well who was also part of Apex. He was one of the engineers in one of the departments for Apex. His name is Brian Tyree Henry, who plays Bernie Hayes. And he was a podcaster. He's a conspiracy theorist, and he actually worked for Apex. And he was essentially putting out information out there while being anonymous, not providing any information that he was actually working for Apex, but he was considered as an insider, a podcaster, and also providing information as to the goings about concerning the research that was being done behind the scenes, where this Ghidorah head, okay, he didn't find out until later in the movie that the Ghidorah head, which was destroyed, well, one of the heads which was salvaged from the battles between Godzilla and Ghidorah, this Ghidorah head was actually placed within an actual replica machine, battle machine, in the shape of Mecha Godzilla. Okay. Now, this is where transhumanism comes into being, and to where the mad scientist comes into play, to where these mad scientists are essentially thinking that they're gods. Now, that's the thing about the New Age movement. Okay. That's the dangers of these forbidden sciences, the same forbidden sciences that were offered to Adam and Eve, the origins of humanity since the garden, and providing these sciences so that you too can be lowercase gods, Gods. You see? And that's one of the particular dangers of obtaining these particular forbidden sciences, the insatiable desire for more knowledge and hidden knowledge and wisdom, to portray to ourselves that we too, look at us, we are like gods, we know like the information like gods, look at us, look what we can do. But essentially by offering us humanity the free will, okay, to choose between God, okay, and being loyal to God, or to bite the bait into these forbidden sciences as offered by the serpent. Okay. But when we think as human beings, look at us, look at the knowledge that we've obtained because of this serpent, because of Satan, look at us and look at what we can do. We are gods. When God the Most High, the God the Creator, who had created us, the creation, is essentially telling us, look at you fools. Okay. But at the same time, he's also telling us through free will, I'm going to let you fall too as well. I'm going to let you make that mistake. But at the end of the day, you will know that I do this for love. Okay. And so, again, I'm kind of tapping into the Garden of Eden and the Tree of Life. And that's just a little bite-sized portion for you to kind of also marinate on too, as future episodes will also cater to explaining the Garden of Eden and the Tree of Life in future episodes. Okay. But as far as it pertains to this movie, I don't want to get into too much detail into that. But with that being said, the forbidden sciences, this knowledge that was utilized to create this Mecha Godzilla, is essentially a precursor into jumping into the realms of transhumanism. So we talked about many of the things that pertain to what is going now as we speak in terms of transhumanism, in terms of the worldview which favors and worships the dragon, the serpent. This is essentially what is happening now as we speak. This is the true virus of our times, not COVID. The true virus of this times is the Luciferian agenda, okay, the Luciferian doctrine, which has been implanted within the inner makings of our psyche as human beings. Okay, so with that being said, you have also a researcher, Rebecca Hall, who plays Dr. Eileen Andrews, who had adopted a Vietnamese girl or an Asian girl who is deaf, but she has the capacity to talk to Kong. And so Rebecca Hall seems to be a part of a team Kong. So there's essentially, two teams there that are essentially fighting each other, but they're still clueless as to why they're fighting each other, because proponents for Team Godzilla, they think that Godzilla is a good titan, is a good monster, and I would have to agree. Okay, very smart. And the same thing with Kong. Kong is a very intelligent and a good monster. They all have particular reasons why they want to be the forerunners of planet Earth, right? But little did Team Kong or even King Kong know that Godzilla was after the very entity, the very corporation which was developing Mechagodzilla. Now, Mechagodzilla requires a great deal of energy to run, okay? But in the same notion, it's also being run by an entity which is for this Luciferian agenda, this Luciferian doctrine, this transhumanism. And again, he represents the very cabal which runs this earth today, the multi-headed Hydra. Okay. And so, with that being said, okay, without going into too much detail with the characterizations of the movie, the role playing, the very CEO, Demian Bircher, he plays Walter Simmons in this movie. He is the actual CEO for Apex, right? And so, in this movie, for the entertainment portions of it, Godzilla faces off with Kong several times. It's been a few, I think 4 total. In my opinion, Kong was defeated many times on over. But during the final battle between the two, Godzilla got on. He went carnal. He went carnal on Kong. He got on all fours and he just went crazy buck wild on Kong, to the point where Kong was incapacitated, like energetically. He was, and Godzilla had the capacity to kill Kong and say, we're done with it. We're done with this rivalry. You're dead. But Now, this is my end of things. I have not seen anybody provide an interpretation to this at all as to why Godzilla did not kill King Kong. This will be the first for you, okay, if you haven't heard it anywhere else. And I have dogs, okay, and often dogs, they will put another dog into submission to tell the other dog, like, hey, I'm the alpha dog up in here, okay? There's no question. And then most at times, the other dog will submit. So within this final battle between Godzilla and Kong, Godzilla was on top. He went colonel. He went totally buck wild on Kong. Kong lost all 4 battles against Godzilla. Godzilla, I am a huge proponent for Kong, but Godzilla won all of these battles, okay? But he did not kill Kong. He had the opportunity to kill Kong at this final run through with Kong, this final battle, before they faced off with their common foe denominator. And so, with that being said, Godzilla was just on top of him. And he was just like right on top and essentially on his chest and telling Kong, look, I could kill you today, but I'm not. But I'm just here to let you know and make this statement for you so it can stick in your thick head that I am the alpha male. I am king. Okay. And so essentially that's what it is. That's what it was for the most part. And then after he did that, he moved away and he essentially went back into the ocean and submerged himself and then went off to who knows where. And that was the actual battle right before they came together and fought Mechagodzilla. When they started to realize, King Kong didn't realize anything at all. He only knew that that Godzilla was essentially making that statement, but he didn't get that until the very end, when he started to realize that Godzilla was on his side, and guess what? He needed to be on his, because the common denominator foe was Mechagodzilla. And that is essentially what is happening now as we speak. Humanity, we have a common foe, and that is transhumanism. And the very entity behind transhumanism, which orchestrates this AI Earth matrix upon to us, is the very entity for which we have to come together and to suggest to each other that there is a common denominator foe amongst us that we must approach, and to take into consideration the maturity and the responsibility that we have as human beings to confront together. Okay. And so that is essentially what it is in a nutshell. I might have went on a tangent a few times, but I didn't want to go too far into the many topics, subtopics, which can essentially go through hours and hours of information. But I just wanted to have this within your consciousness for you to ponder upon after you watch the show. And if you think that this message is pertinent to your situation and how you are essentially looking at the world as your own worldview of things, and how you interpret what is actually going on, and this matrix of sorts, please pass it on by any means. And so in review, we're essentially seeing the very makings, the sign of the times, where transhumanism, AI, and to where this cabal network are the orchestrators of this AI matrix. Okay, and that is exactly what this movie is trying to tell you as a hidden message to the very people who can see this. It's not only for its entertainment value, but for something of hidden value, which can help you to propel yourself to navigate better through whatever we're going through right now as we speak. Okay. And Mechagodzilla essentially represents the AI transhumanism, which is taking over the planet today. This matrix that we see right before you, that you see right before yourselves, is essentially an AI entity in which the orchestrators of this simulation, this movie, is essentially something which can be considered the multi-headed Hydra, the very beast that can be interpreted as the same beast within the Book of Revelations. Okay, and then you have the one salvaged head of Ghidorah, which essentially is the beast in itself, the dragon, one of the heads of this multi-headed beast, of this multi-headed Hydra, which is the same particular entity from the Book of Revelations. And then how it relates to the Hollow Earth. I guess you could say that the Hollow Earth is another symbolic representation of Hades in itself, for which the underworld, the pits of hell, and for which how Lemuria, Shambhala, and the ancient roots of the Titans of old and biblical scripture relates to everything that is happening now as we speak. The Hollywood portrayal of how everything is going down as we speak amidst this this apocalyptic times, the end of days that we are living and experiencing now as we speak. Okay, and so many might, be judgmental towards my analysis, but I'm okay with that. Okay, some may say you're going way too deep with this. You're thinking way too deep. It's just a movie. It's just essentially, a Godzilla versus Kong. You don't need to go into too deep into conspiracy theory and so forth. So, or they might essentially think that this is something that helps explain many things that are going down as we speak, as far as their own interpretation of what's going on, as far as the COVID, as far as the elections, as far as the New World Order, the Masonic Order, and the many other things that they just cannot put a finger on. But now that they've seen this analysis, they can essentially take this interpretation, this blueprint of analysis, and then essentially overlay it upon their own analysis of how they see the world within their own worldview. Okay. And so with that said, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions about this particular broadcast or this topic in question, please by all means send your questions to awaken@realrevolutionradio.com. If you would like to check out our shows on YouTube, please join our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, please follow us at jointheinspiration.com. If you would like to see where we had come from as far as the New Age movement is concerned, and to essentially just check out our broadcast from where we had essentially started from as a rebrand, please by all means check out our website at awakeningondemand.com. And if you would like to also check out, just kind of pick my brain with my writings, by all means, I've been writing within this blog for the last 4, 5, 6 years, since 2016. And I got to tell you, that is the bread and butter of everything that I'm all about. That is essentially where most of my broadcasts originate from these writings. And if you would like to check that out, please, by all means, visit our website for that at blog.with.realrevolutionradio.com. If you'd like to give me a particular phone call, and if you'd like to join the revolution with Real Revolution Radio X.O, the R3 radio network, our rebranded news broadcasting network, please by all means give me a ring at 216-618-3252. Again, that's 216-618-3252. And thank you so much, dear listeners. Once again, please like, subscribe, join the revolution, subscribe to our network, and check us out. And I'd be very honored to work with you if you would like to be a part of this new movement, this new ministry of sorts that we're bringing together as we return back to Christ, walking away from the New Age. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you soon. God bless.
But but heard instead. Dear listeners, through podcast radio on RealRevolutionRadio.com. Never before has inspirational podcast radio been taken to this next level of wow. Until now. Today, in the age of information, more and more people are searching for answers and in solutions in how to better approach and perceive every day-to-day concerns by tuning in to RealRevolutionRadio.com. Isn't it about time we take back our lives, back in consciousness, in a higher state of awareness, in the evolution of our own state of higher well-being? Yes, we can do so consciously every day by tuning in to the many groundbreaking and third eye-opening podcasts. Our new Cleveland-based network of over 33 paradigm-shifting internet talk shows. Only on RealRevolutionRadio.com. Be part of that change. Evolve. Be inspired.